Yeah, we watch exactly film. Let's just see exactly films soon. And then we'll go to 80 Wolf. Preview of Zachary Films shortcoming now.
The burning matches and saw what he was doing. Passengers and crew wrestled him to the ground, and eventually he was sedated. And when they checked his shoes, they discovered a fuse sticking out of each one. It turned out they were stuffed with enough explosives to bring down the entire plane. And that's why you have to take off your shoes at the airport. He tried to light his shoe on fire mid-flight, but the attendants smelled the burning matches and saw what he was doing. Passengers and crew wrestled him to the ground, and eventually he was sedated. And when they checked his shoes, they discovered a fuse sticking out of each one. It turned out they were stuffed with enough explosives to bring down the entire plane. And that's why you have to take off your shoes at the airport. Sick people ride this roller coaster that will climb over 1,500 feet. Next, it plummets at over 200 miles an hour before going through 7 shrinking loops. And this creates enough force to make the riders black out immediately. It cuts off the oxygen to their brains, and after 60 seconds, this will kill them. Now, this ride was designed for terminally ill patients, giving them the option of a fun death. But only a scale model was ever built. Sick people ride this roller coaster that will climb over 1,500 feet. Are you a... He milked the venom from the snake before injecting it into his veins. But it was such a small amount that he was unharmed, and this allowed him to build up antibodies. Over the next 20 years, he did this 700 times, injecting more and more venom. And eventually, he built up a tolerance. He's now been bitten over 200 times by some of the world's most deadly snakes, and he survived each one. Eventually, his blood could be used to create a universal antivenom, saving people from all kinds of snake bites. If you pulled out someone's spine, could you... They smashed her head into the cake, but didn't realize there were wooden sticks inside holding it together. And one pierced her eyelid, getting stuck in her eye socket. Blood poured from the wound as she screamed in pain. She was rushed to the hospital where the stick was carefully removed. But if it had been just an inch to the right, she would have gone blind. They smashed her head into the cake. If you get trapped underwater, the tank flew across the room, striking the boy in the head. You see, he was undergoing an MRI scan after a surgery. But during the procedure, a staff member accidentally brought a metal oxygen tank into the room. And when the machine was turned on, its massive magnet pulled the tank into the chamber where the boy was laying. And despite medical attention, he passed away 2 days later. If you lit a cigarette on a spaceship, it would form a round blue flame, and it would just hover in place, feeding on... She slammed into him, and he flew through her windshield, but she was drunk, and instead of calling for help, she drove home with him still stuck in the glass. Once she was in her garage, she apologized, only to leave him there for 2 more days as he bled out. When he finally died, she and her friends stuffed his corpse into a car trunk and dumped it in the park. But after she bragged about it at a party, police discovered her crime. She slammed into him, and he flew through her windshield, but she was drunk, and instead of calling for help, she drove home with him still stuck in the glass. Once she was in her garage, If you tilt your bow... He was fixing the pin setter when it suddenly activated. The machine moved down as if to set up the bowling pins, but the man was still underneath, and the weight of it crushed him instantly. With no one around to hear his cries, he was left to... If the seatbelt is around your pregnant belly and you get into a crash, it can transfer the force directly into your stomach. And this can cause the entire placenta to rip off completely, leaving your baby without a way to breathe. Now, you might think skipping the belt altogether might be safer, but even a sudden stop can throw your body forward, crushing your belly against the steering wheel. So instead, place it below your belly and across your hips. This spreads the force of the crash over your body, saving you and your baby's life. If the seatbelt is around your pregnant belly and you get into a crash, it can transfer the force direct.
Oh, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Hey, jingle bells.
The man swallowed his AirPod as he was sleeping, and without realizing, he woke up to drink some water. But he couldn't swallow and had to lean over the sink to let the water drain from his mouth. He thought nothing of it and went back to sleep. But the next morning, he felt pressure in his chest, and an x-ray revealed his AirPod stuck in his esophagus. The doctor inserted a lasso tool down his throat and pulled it out. As the snake crawls through the loop, the string tightens. They left the scissors inside his body. As the snake crawls through the loop, the string tightens around its body. This is because the string is tied to a stick, twisted between several rubber. They left the scissors inside his body and didn't notice when they sewed him up. But over the next 2 decades, he only had the occasional stomachache, so he mostly ignored them. But when it started getting worse, he finally went to the hospital. Doctors did an ultrasound and they were shocked to discover the scissors inside him. After 18 years, they were finally removed, leaving the man pain-free. Listing your vacation. As he tucked his daughter in, she looked scared and asked him to check the closet. The father smiled and walked over, but as he pulled the closet door open, his face went numb. It was his daughter. She was crying, trembling. He completely froze in horror before snapping his head back to the bed. It was empty. He was panicked for a moment, but he shook it off. It must have just been his imagination. He calmed his daughter, tucked her in for real this time, and left the room. The dark room settled for a moment, but then the closet door slowly creaked open. As he tucked his daughter in, when the bass takes your bait and the elderly person is forced into a freezing cold bath, causing their temperature to drop dangerously. Next, they're made to drink massive amounts of coconut milk, which causes their organs to fail. And eventually, the person dies from the damage. Now, this is supposed to be